my name is Tinu, and welcome to Craftastrophe.
Collision imminent. Collision imminent.
Oh,
Collision imminent.
hold on, this is gonna hurt. Like I said, my name is Tinu, and I like building little things. You know, fun little things. And that's what we're gonna do today. We're gonna sculpt several astronauts who just want to try to enjoy a picnic, a monster that hates seeing people have a good time, an old school style rocket ship that I'll carve out of foam, an innocent scene of domestic bliss, and a bit of horror and gore. I'll also build a little theater where this whole sci-fi psychodrama is taking place. Plus we'll try to spruce this whole diorama up with some lighting. So, if this sounds good to you, then let's get our craft on. To get this project rolling, I did a bunch of rough sketches, and some of them are really rough. It's hard to even tell what's going on. But basically, I'm building a stage where this little kid is watching an old monster movie on TV, and in the background we're seeing what's happening in his imagination. Now, in the spirit of fun, I want to kind of just blast through making a base for this project. You cut some wood, glue it, slap them together, clamp it. I kind of like to use all the clamps. Then I designed the shape of the stage, and I glued on some planks to make the wooden flooring. Painted those planks with shellac, second coat, done. Rocket. So inside of Photoshop, I designed an old school rocket. Then I printed it out and transferred it to some blocks of SPS foam that I glued together.
Man, I love these type of old school spaceships.
Yeah, me too.
The space shuttle felt pretty flat in the looks department. It could have looked like a Lamborghini. Instead, it looked like a minivan for a soccer mom.
It's really fun to refine the shape of the foam with sandpaper. And you can get pretty detailed with it, but we have a bit of a problem here. Right there. But we're gonna fix that with some lightweight spackling. And if you use some water, it really smooths this stuff out. It's nice.
Man, this ship kind of flies clunky.
I'm gonna cut the rocket into 4 separate sections. But you gotta do it so slowly.
Man, you're moving at the speed of sloth.
Yeah, I'm not gonna put you guys through this. This is a mixture of Mod Podge and paint.
And now a second coat of that lightweight spackling.
Yep, and now we smooth it with water. And then more sanding. This is gesso and a little bit of black paint. The gray color makes it easier to see the surface.
Man, how many times are you gonna sand this thing?
A bunch. Okay, now I'm gluing all the parts together, using a combination of PVA glue and foam safe super glue.
It was cooler before you chopped it all up.
I'm not finished with it,
It's okay to admit your mistakes.
says the man who's still holding high school grudges.
I'm taking those to my grave, and with good reason.
I'm covering this balsa wood with some cosplay to make the rocket boosters. And I'm gonna use a piece of wood and roll this at an angle to give it the basic shape and to smooth the surface out. Like that. I then baked these again and sanded them down. Now to remove the sanding marks, I'm gonna apply Bacon Bond again, bake it one more time, and that's gonna smooth these out.
Smooth.
And clean up the bottom edges.
Oh, is this gonna be for the bottom of the ship?
Yep, you nailed it. This is a leftover piece of cardstock from my laser cutter. It's gonna be the porthole. Let's airbrush this guy in a nice silver.
I don't see anything happening.
Well, it's silver now.
Hey, relax.
Anyway, I'm masking out the porthole with a little bit of clay. And I'm also going to mask these sections and add a bit of color to it.
Oh, is that your mother's cling wrap?
Yep,
You are playing with fire, boy.
I'm a grown man.
That makes zero difference to her. Trust me, I'm speaking from experience.
I'm not worried.
No, you should be afraid.
Now that the paint's dry, let's remove some of this masking tape. And this is like one of my favorite parts of crafting. It's so satisfying. I'm running some string through some black paint. Even though there's probably better ways of doing this, this is how I like to do it. After it's dry, then I run it through some PVA glue. That takes away all the little fuzzy edges, which gives away the fact that it's string. And this black line is going to really help define the different sections.
Okay, I'll admit you really pulled it together at the last minute.
Thank you. Let's add one more detail. I'm adding some UV resin to the porthole to give it a glossy glass look. Figures. For this project, I need to make a bunch of figures. So I'm using braided wire to create the armatures. And this is not very difficult. You just lay the wire over the figure template and match the limbs. Super glue doesn't stick well to metal, but it's good enough to just hold it in place while I use some JB weld to really lock in these parts.
Yeah, JB Weld is super strong. It's the only thing still holding the rear axle on my truck.
I use some orange paint to indicate where I want the bones to be. This just eliminates the guesswork and makes it easier to apply the JB weld. And then once it's dry, you can pose this little guy in any way you like.
Okay, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's fun. Let's add some cosplay to him. Okay, now that I got the first rough pass done of these figures, let's put them in the oven.
Okay, what's next?
Hey, what are you doing?
What does it look like? I'm trying to enjoy my Mountain Dew Code Red.
No drinks around my electronics.
You kind of a tyrant, you know that?
Yeah, sure. You know what? You also crunch your ice, which is super annoying.
Not to me.
Well, the rest of the world thinks so.
Well, I find the rest of the world super annoying.
How many times you been kicked out of the movies for ice crunching?
Hey, that's not fair. I tend to crunch my ice when I'm feeling emotional, and it's not my fault that most of the movies get really quiet at the emotional parts.
Somebody gave me this little bowl, but it's plastic, so I can't bake it with this guy.
You know, that's another thing that people are very sensitive about at the movies, the decibel level of my popcorn eating.
Yeah, if you get stuck with a mouthful of popcorn and the movie gets really quiet, you gotta kind of time your chewing to the dialogue.
You worry too much about what people think.
And that might be true, but I've never been kicked out of a theater.
I think you're just not living life to its fullest.
Well, I think maybe I'm just being considerate.
Tinu, when I spend $22.95 on some popcorn and a Coke,
Our Mountain Dew Code Red,
depends on my mood. But I'm gonna eat it at the volume level I deem necessary.
and that's why you're a rebel.
You got that right.
I'm using some wire to make pins on the feet of the figures. This is going to help secure them to the base. Using a little bit of super glue and some baking soda to lock them in. It also helps them stand up while working on them. I made a ray gun for the captain out of polystyrene. Let's use a bit of foil. We're gonna make the tentacled Terra, which is the octopus-like monster. Some 16 gauge wire that I braided. This is gonna make the armature for his tentacles. Using a bit of clay softener helps the tool not to stick and pull the eyeballs out.
Oh, I bet this is gonna be his fangs, huh, in his mouth.
Yeah, it's usually easier to do the teeth first and then push them into soft clay.
Man, this thing is ugly.
It's a monster.
I bet he has supersonic hearing with those ears. Kinda like your mother, she can hear anything. See?
And just a couple of more spikes to add to the Terra. Hey you, if you're new to this channel and you like what you're seeing, consider subscribing or pressing the like button or even turning on the notification bell. All stuff you've heard a million times before, but it really does help me and this channel out a whole lot, and I can keep making weird, bizarre, and fun crafting videos. And of course, the ultimate and cool is if you join me on Patreon.
Okay, judging from the picture you showed earlier, I know what this is. It's gonna be the picnic basket.
You got it?
Yeah, no food.
I used a piece of buckram to impress that wicker texture into the basket. And I'm adding a few more details, like this handle, which I made out of polystyrene.
Hey, how are they gonna eat the sandwiches if they're wearing spacesuits?
You know what? You asked too many questions.
It's a pretty serious plot flaw.
Little base coat of black. Then a dry brushing highlight of white.
To accentuate the details.
Yep, and now we're gonna add a little bit of color.
Man, he should get some Visine.
Yeah, why do you have so many bottles of Visine in your truck?
When you deal with the cops as much as I do, it's a necessary tool to have in your arsenal.
I'm painting on some bloody gore. And to make this really pop, I'm gonna add some UV resin to it, which gives it a wet, gory look. Yeah. Gore. The UV resin is also dramatic on eyeballs. You know, for that wet, angry look.
Your mother has perfected that look. It's unnatural. Oh man, I bet you $100 that this guy's name wasn't featured on the movie poster.
Probably not.
Sacrificial lamb.
He's a red shirt.
Tinu, that's orange.
A little UV resin. The toothpick helps get some of the bubbles out.
More cling wrap? You're a brave man.
Yes, life on the edge. I'm using some cosplay and this aluminum foil to try to make it look like popcorn.
Sci-Fi City.
What in the world are you doing out by the garbage can?
I'm making a sci-fi city.
Well, it's no Blade Runner 2041.
You really know your movies, don't you?
It's a passion,
So I went through all my boxes of junk.
which he has no shortage of.
Yes, so that I could collect stuff to make a background for this diorama. This is from a project that failed. And this is also a project that failed. Yeah, these two.
I'm sensing a pattern.
This is left over from my Christmas project. These are more Christmas ornaments. Some toilet paper rolls. And this guy's from an old project. Then I snapped some pics and brought it into Photoshop. I also shot some of the individual elements, like this UFO made from some paper plates. And I started adding different elements like building fronts and trees. And in the background, I added some planets. And then on the edges, I extended the city out on the sides and started playing around with the color to make it feel like an old movie. Also added these pipes. I then split the background out into 3 separate pieces so that it matched the dimensions of the diorama, then printed it. Now I'm going to attach these printouts to this really thick paperboard, and I'm going to use Mod Podge to do that. Let's overlay some wax paper. And I'm going to push the Mod Podge out from the center along with the air bubbles so that it lays flat. Now I'm drilling some holes where the stars are so that I can run fiber optics through here. Here's one of the problems with this method. The fiber optic slips right through. So I'm going to use heat to flare out the tip. See that? It makes it like a nail head. It serves the same function. Hey, it doesn't go through. Then something horrible happened. I used super glue to hold the fiber optics in place, and look, it made the fiber optics extremely brittle. Ouch.
Craftastrophe.
I couldn't figure out a way to fix this without destroying the background, so I moved on. I'm adding this wood as vertical supports to the stage. This is what the curtains will hang off of. Now I'm making the curtain armature out of some popsicle sticks and some bamboo marshmallow skewers. You can get that for real cheap at the dollar store. It's way cheaper than buying dowels. I also found some really cool fabric, but I didn't find it at the dollar store. In order to make this feel like curtains, I use a dowel to push the fabric down and then glue it in place on the back. Now, pushing this dowel down gives this curtain-like feel, like a ripple into the fabric, but it holds its shape. This is fun. I laser etched a rug pattern onto some EVA foam and then painted it. Then I added a bit of PVA glue and then some super glue so that I could get this in place. I also made some rocks.
You're not gonna tell us how you made the rocks?
You know, you carve it out of some foam, you paint it, and then you paint it again. Rock. Every major element and figure has metal pins in the bottom. That way I can stick it into these holes and glue it onto the stage. Now, I made a little TV in my last diorama, so I'll put a link down in the description to that if you want to see how it's built. Yeah. I designed this banner to go on the front of the stage. It's gonna fit in right here. And I used my octopus, which is the same one that I pressure washed onto my carport a while back. And I sent that to my laser cutter. This kind of technology still blows my mind. I mean, look at that. Wild. I'm measuring out the distance that I want the light bulbs to be, and I'm using a little template that I made with string so that it goes around the curves. Now my wife showed me this trick to spin the drill backwards. See, this is Luan, which is a veneered plywood, so the drill bit will sometimes catch and split it. I'm also putting masking tape on the back to stop it from splitting when the bit goes through. See? Spin bit backwards.
If you're in Australia, you have to do it the other way.
No, that's incorrect. Check this out. To make the light bulbs, I'm using some hot glue and... Oop, look at that. Perfect little light bulb.
That's my favorite part so far.
Yeah, it was a fun one to figure out. And the reason they light up is that I'm pressing some fairy lights against the back of the hot glue. Now, before I show you the final shots, I want to show you one more thing. Someone called the UK Mystery Man bought me this from my wish list. It's a wire stripper, and it holds the wire in place and then pulls the plastic sheath off at the same time. Look at that. I love this so much because sometimes with the regular wire stripper, if you're working around delicate parts, you gotta pull really hard. You can easily break something.